Yeah, good evening, everyone. So, yesterday we learned how to create a simple interface by using components. We learned how to create some Netflix like screen. Have you tried? Huh? Everyone able to do this? You need to practice. Huh? So, you should practice. So, if you try and you have any issues and let me know about them, then I can check, because practically implementing everything you are learning is important. So if you just listen and don't practice, then it is difficult, because later on complexity increases, then you will be unable to handle that properly if you don't practice day by day concepts. Okay, so yesterday I showed you how we can create a simple application with the help of Bootstrap. We designed a simple interface actually. So in this interface, our concept is to understand how to design component and how to access a component in another component, how to design components, how to access components. That is the main thing. I will show you one more simple example. Then we will go in detail about components now. We will discuss more. I will show one more example. So just simple one. Then you can understand the process again. So for example, I will show you another template. For example, you have, if you want some design ideas, you have Get Bootstrap. This is Get Bootstrap. In this Get Bootstrap, you have themes category. Get Bootstrap is official Bootstrap related website. You can go to themes category. In the themes category, you will find a lot of website themes. You will get a lot of website themes. That means a lot of website designs you will find here. Excuse me, hello. Yes, you have an
Recording
issue?
in progress.
So you're following? Then please don't disturb. Right. So here you can see the themes here. So we have some themes available here. So let's see. There are website themes. This is for your design ideas. These are all sample template themes. You can select one theme. You can implement that to practice your components related knowledge. Right? These are all different themes we are having related to different concepts. Because I selected some React shopping here, you see a simple, this is some regular simple example you can implement. What you done in HTML, everything you can implement here. Suppose here, these are all themes you can try. Initially taking a complex theme is risky. I will use this, which you can practice in HTML also. This is a shopping related theme. It's a shopping related template. It's an e-commerce template. So I will open this here, go to live preview. The e-commerce template looks like this. It's a simple e-commerce template. And now we want to design like this in React. So in React, so you want to implement like this. That means you want to design like this. So in React, if you want to design like this, that means it is having a lot of components again. Actually, you see, this is a header component. That is an header component. Means a separate component. And in that, below that header, there is some article. And you see it is having some main components. This is main. Actually, main is having some divisions like women fashion, men fashion with buttons. We can make them clickable. We can make the user to view them in next levels. For that, we need to learn routing. When you learn routing, we can make it even functional also. We will make it work. First, our concept is learning how to design. So first you are learning how to design a good component. Later you will give the functionality. Let's try to design this and see. Yesterday we saw same like Netflix. Today we will see this shopper template. I will create a simple shopper template. Let's try this and see. In this actually that starts with a index page. Shopper index. Shopper index is empty. In that shopper index, you will have header. Under that header, you will have some article. After that article, you will have some main. That means actually here, let me design this in a layout type. That means now today what we are going to design is a shopper template. In this shopper template, this is the index component. That means what I will do is I will keep it as shopper index. This is shopper index. In this shopper index, there is a header. You have an header here. So we are having header. Actually, inside the header, it is having some article also. Directly inside the header itself, it is having. That means I will consider this as header. This is a shopper header, shopper index and shopper header. And in that header, it is having these two. These two are present in header. Okay. One row contains a design, another row contain items, and another row contains normal bar, right? That is header. After that header, we have a main. So this is considered as some shopper main. So here we are having a shopper main. In the shopper main, some 3 images are there. Those 3 images are for men shopping, women shopping, and like concepts. Let's try to design this and see. So yesterday's is one example. This is another, just simple overview. So how many components I need to design? 3. One index, another one header, another one main. Which one I should start with? I should start with index. In index, there will be header and main. That is the basic hierarchy we need to do. Okay, let's do this now. Let's create this and see. Go to the project. In this project, first I will collect images and keep in public folder. because all static resources must be in public. I will collect some images and keep in public folder. And in my computer, I am having some images. I will use these images like public images. Yeah, some shopping related images are there. You can download. I have some images here. That is fashion 1, fashion 2, fashion 3. And 3. So these are actually, you can rename them. This is woman JPG file. And this is, yeah, this is men JPG file. And this is kids. Actually, in my computer, that kids is a PNG file. Huh? That's a PNG file. You can download your own type. So these images I have to use in my application. First, I copied all these images in public folder. Let's go in the components. I will create a separate folder in components by name shopper. Shopper is the name. In that, we want 3 files. One is shopper index.jsx. Another one, shopper header.jsx. Another one, so another file, shopper main.jsx. We have 3 components here. The index, header, and main. From which one we should start? Index. So I will go to index, export, function, and shopper index. In this shopper index, we will return a simple container. And let's say class name container fluid. Okay, that's fine. Now, in this, we need to keep everything and we need to start with this. So let's go to index.js. In index.js, we have to import and start with shopper index. Shopper index, it will import and we will start with shopper index. Remember, when we are learning concepts, for every concept, I am designing one page, one component. We will start with that component and we will test it. Later, what you can do is, after you learned navigation system and everything, routing like, you will have only one screen. Every time it starts with that screen, from there user can choose which one he wants. He can navigate from one place to another. Because when you are practicing, they don't have any relation with each other. So every topic wise component that we design, we are keeping in startup. Sometimes people, what they do is they put this in app component and they start with the app component. But it's not necessary. Which component to start, you can change. We will change that. So now it is starting with shopper index. Okay. Now it is currently empty. Nothing is there in this. Okay. Now in this, at the top, we need a header. We need a header. And see the header, how it looks like. Shopper, home, catalog, shop, pages, some icons. So let's design that and see. So what I will do now, let's go to shopper header. Shopper header.jsx. Let's create the header. So export and function shopper header. Okay, so it's a function and it should return a header. That's the semantic we are using. In the header, I will keep two options. One is nav. At the header top, we'll have a nav. In the header, we have an article. Nav and articles. These are all semantics. You know, HTML5 have so many new semantics. These semantics are used for making the content more SEO friendly, search engine friendly. Actually, there is another technique. There is another technique for making accessible. But in modern web designing, we can use these elements. What is another technique is, in other ways, how you can handle is, suppose you are designing here. So we are creating some div. In that, you created some navigation. Search engine cannot understand. Search engine cannot understand that this is the navigation area. Then we can write this div with role as nav. We can write like that. That means now this is an ordinary div, but the accessibility role is navigation. You can even create a div and you can set the role as main. Then it is considered as main area. Articles, main, that is the role. Actually, we can also configure so area label as some nav. Like this, we can configure. That's a navigation system. These are all accessibility related concepts. But as per the web standards, web always prefers using the new semantics. It refers using these new semantics instead of using these. Actually, some people have an habit of writing like this. That is also good. In several websites, you will see that. But the modern web expects to use directly those semantics. It is more convenient for search engines. But this is also you see in websites. They mention the names. That is to make the pages more accessible. Make the pages more accessible. We generally call it as accessibility. You can read the standards. If you want to know the standards rules of HTML, then you can go to w3.org. You can visit that website w3.org, because these people are the people who maintain standards for web. And HTML related is whatwg.org. You can visit these two. HTML is maintained and it is developed by a group called whatwg. And in these websites, you search for accessibility. In these websites, you search for accessibility. There they will show you information about how to make your pages more easily accessible in the web. That means designing website is not important, making it accessible is important. If it is not easily accessible to robots or servers, then it is not a great website. And accessibility plays a key role in that. Actually, these at higher level, we have separate accessibility people. Their role and responsibility is, after you design the page and send to them, they will make it good accessible. You know, Google have a concept called AdSense. You know, Google have AdSense and Google have AdWords. Actually, Google AdSense is nothing but they will pay you money for your website by placing ads in your website. That is Google AdSense actually. That means you have a website or you have an app. Google will put advertisements in that, and for that they will pay you. That is Google AdSense. Google AdWords means you can advertise on Google. You can advertise on Google. If you have a business and for your business, you have an app, you have a website, and you want the world to know about your business, then you can pay money to Google, and Google have a technical team, Google digital marketing team. They are under this AdWords. What that team will do, they will take your website, because you are paying money for that. They will take your website and they will make it more accessible to robots. After making more accessible to robots in Google search, if anybody is searching for your type of business, then they will put your website at the top. And for that, you are paying money. It's not free. In Google search results, you will see ad, right? That means those people are advertising with Google. And how those ads will come in the top directly because of the accessibility. This accessibility is a very trending concept, very highly advanced concept currently. Very less people are training on this. Very less people are trained on this. And we have a good demand in future market for this accessibility. I will tell you one simple one. One of my friend is in Cisco. He's then more than 10 years. He recently shifted to accessibility from his regular development. And for shifting to accessibility, that is his new profile, he learned accessibility, and he is now one of the developer of accessibility in Cisco. And the beginning package for accessibility developer, 50 lakh per annum. His current salary on accessibility profile is 50 lakh per annum. That is the demand of that accessibility. And what is these people's role and responsibility is this concept. Making more accessible, right? Accessibility is very important because you see every application needs accessibility. A mobile or an app should be designed in such a way that a person who don't have hands, he can operate your mobile, means he can operate your app. That means physically challenged people, they can handle your app. Visually challenged people, they can use your app. That is what the specialty of accessibility. That means you see Netflix is designed with React, as I told you. It is having great accessibility features. I hope you know in Netflix, when you are watching videos, there is an option audio with description. You know, have you ever seen that? Audio with description. Audio with description means that Netflix app will narrate what is happening on screen. That means two actors are walking out of a store and they are discussing some topic. Then generally you people can see it and you can listen to the dialogues. But people who cannot see, how they know that they are coming outside store? And you put audio with the description, then it will read that and tell you. It will tell that these people are coming out of store, and at the same time their dialogues also. It will say that they are approaching towards the car, they are sitting in the car, they are driving, and someone is passing by, some mountains are passing by. It will explain. That is great feature. That is accessibility. That is accessibility. That means you see all these Siri and all, they are all accessibilities. You just give the commands, they will operate. So this is what very important is. So that's the reason you may be sometimes wondered like why you are using now, article and all this. Because in the modern web designing is not just important, making them more accessible is important. For that, we have two techniques. We can use ARIA labels, you can use roles, or you can directly use the semantics developed in HTML5. According to the semantics rather than these. Instead of using those, they will ask you to better use semantics. For navigation, use now. For advertisements, use aside. For highlights, use article, like that. Okay. That's the reason I'm using all these points. Okay. Now let's design the navigation here. In the navigation, you see there are three divisions, one shopper and some menu and some icons. So we will create three divisions in navigation. This is one division, this is another division, and this is another. Okay. And the first division contains a simple header as what? Shopper. I'll just give shopper. Or you can keep it as a normal span. So shopper, and you can give a class. You can give a class name. Class name is H2. That means heading classes you are available. You can apply them. That is bootstrap classes. You can configure the bootstrap classes, or you can directly give a heading style, right? You can configure them. Okay. Next, in the second division, I have span. This is home. I have another span, shop. So we have a span pages. You have a span like blog. So we have span like, I think they have docs, and we have a span like catalog. All these are present. Now in the right side panel, you have a span class name as BI search. And we have another span class name BI heart. And we have another class name BI person. And you have span class name as BI. So BI is some cart. Like this we are having. Now these are all inside the header. And under that, there is an article. In that article, we have a span. So class name, in the class name, we are having some classes like BI and BI lightning fill. There is something like lightning fill. Otherwise, I will check that. And here they have an item like happy holiday deals on everything. Happy holiday deals on everything. Like this we are having. And another we are have. This is the icon. This is article we are having. This is the header part. And where to keep the header now? In the index at the top, we need to keep the header. Still styles are not defined, just basic we designed. So let's go to the shopper index, and here we have to import the header component. So which component? Shopper header. We have to import the shopper header and keep it. Now you can see the shopper header is there. Now the shopper header component is here. We'll do now, go to header component. This navigation I will keep as class dflex. It is display flex. Justify content between. Justify content between and display flex. And you can see one will be left, another one will be center, another one between, one left, another center, another right. Okay, that is what we are keeping here. Okay, that is just the design. Now what we will do is here, and see here, for every span I am adding a class as margin end. Margin end means right. Margin right is 2. So 2 or 3 something. That is the same class we are applying for every span. For every span, I am applying the same class. And you can see some gap between those options are there. home, blog, shop, and all this. And I think this is H4 is enough. Little smaller is okay. Okay, now same we need to apply for this also. Add the class as just margin and 2. Or 3, it is going to display that gap. Now in the article, we will put a class name text center, BG dark, text white, and padding 2 or 3, and margin top as some 4. And you can see it will be like this. And we are having some padding as 1 is enough. I think it looks okay. That's how it displays. That is the header part we designed. And colors, you can configure the colors and define the colors. So for example, wherever this is there, I will give the class as text warning. Text warning will give that gold color. That means I will apply this also as what? Text warning. Then it is going to apply that color. Later we will make it functional. That means when user clicks on shop, we can display that shopping data below. We will do that. We will implement the functionality, right? So this is header. Now under this header, we need a main area. You need a main area. Let's see here. It's not necessary to use a CSS file, because if you can manage everything with Bootstrap, that is sufficient for your design, then you can just use the classes. So, and otherwise you have to add manually extra CSS for that. So let's do now another one. See what I am doing. We need to create a main area now. So export function, what is it? Shopper main. Okay, let's return a main here. We are designing a main semantic. In this main, you can observe there are 3 divisions there. Actually, I will keep div. And this is, I will keep as class name as card. I'm using a card style. And I have another div and the class name as card. We have ready-made cards. I'm using the class name as card. Like this, I configured. And important is actually, it depends how you design, because you can see the placement here. They are actually background photos. On the background photo, they are using some text and buttons. They are background images actually. So that means now these cards need a background image. So I will do one thing. For this, I will give card, that is woman, and this is card men, and this is card kids. Like this, I am defining. And these are our own classes then. Then we have to apply our own images and configure them. Okay, let's do that now. And remember, so we have to access this main inside index. Inside index, after the header. After the header, we have to create a div, or just we have to create a section. In this section, we have to add shopper main. We have to import the shopper main. At the top, we have a header. After the header, we have a section. In that section, we have a shopper main. Now, currently, shopper main is empty. Nothing is there inside. We have just 3 divisions. I will do here shopper main. This main will keep dflex, display flex. We will keep just display flex. Okay. Now let's add some CSS here. What is the CSS is? Let's go to the design and add a CSS file. What is it? Shopper main.css. In this, we have a class called card woman. What it should have? Card woman should have a background image. Then we will use background image. Image URL, it is from public. In that public, we have woman.jpg. And we will keep background size, background size as cover, because it should fix into that. And here we will give background, that's enough, size is enough. Similarly, I will add other cards, and this card is for men, and here we will have men.jpg. You have another for kids, and this is kids.jpg. It's not jpg, png, and that is the option. And usually, so the images should display there because there is no content in the divs. I need to keep the height for the divs. That means what we will do is, wherever main is present, height for main, we will keep some 400 pixel. 400 pixel, then it will have 400 pixel. After that, we need to define every card. See, this card is having, suppose we need to import now. That means let's go to the main, and here we need to import. Import what? /shopper main.css. We are importing that here. So you see height is there, and every card also height I need to adjust. In the shopper main, so every card, that means in the main every div is present. Not good to add as a div. 300 is, I think, enough. Yeah. Now you see here, every card I will keep height. So height as some 300 pixel. Then it should get that. Some problem. It is in which place? /woman only now. Now we have some. Main is added. Card woman is the class. Suppose woman, I am typing something. Height is there. It is there, but width is not there. Height is not there. We need to control them. Huh? So actually, these three are present. These three are present, but we need to equally share them inside it. Then I will do one thing. I will use row. This is the row. And here I will use as a class name will be same. I will use extra call. And extra call means we are arranging in rows and columns. It will be like this. It will fit the content in this way. And for main area, so I will give some padding as 3, all directions. So 2, I think, is enough like this. That's the padding here. That depends on how much height you are configuring for your content. That means I'm just arranging in rows and columns. And let's go to the main, and the height here I will remove because all these are having same height. I will just adjust that all to 400. Then the height will be adjusted for that. That is the design. So we have a card header and the card main. And inside that you need to display some content. I hope you can try. That means inside that they are having some heading. What is it? Women. And after that, they are having a button. And what is it? Shop. And we will have a class. So class name BTN and BTN, suppose BTN dark something. And you can see it will add like this. Right. So that means that is just roughly I added BTN light, and BTN light will be like this. So that is just predefined button appearances we are adding. And important, this column have text align. Text align is what that is actually text center. That will keep the text center. And for this, we will put a class as text white. Text white will keep that color to white. And you have to adjust horizontally, vertically center your wish. You can control that. This is the original size. Right. The same thing I will add everywhere. That is men. And this is woman. And here we use men. And here I am using some another one. And this is kids. We are adding just kids. So actually they have some icon also here, span class name, because it is having like BI arrow right. I think there is an arrow right. That's fine. That means they have that icon in button after that word shop. I will just copy that and I will keep it here. And just this, and you can see it will display in this way. And all these need to be so center. That means just I am giving text what center. I'm just giving text as center. Okay. And usually I just added additionally margin top. Actually vertical you can apply. And here margin bottom as 4. That means you will have some gap to display there. You'll have some gap to display. There also margin top 4. Then it will be like this. The kids, the men. You can apply horizontal, vertical, center. I'm just using margin top 4, margin bottom 4. Here also margin top 4, margin, that's enough. This is margin top 4 and margin bottom 4. And margin top 4 button. Okay. These are the effects we are just adding to keep the content in this. That is how we configure. So generally, this is a simple example to make you understand about how we can create components. That means now you are watching one page, but in this page, a lot of components are there. So what are the major components you are having here? 2 components. They are arranged in 1/3. What is that index component? We have a header component, another one main. So everything is configured in this way. What is a means advantage of this? You can reuse these components any number of times. We can access and use the component any number of times. That means suppose somewhere I want the header again. Then usually you see in the shopper index, after the section, here I used again shopper header. Then what happens is that header components comes below again. That means you can just reuse your components any number of times. Later, you can control them also. Like in next place, I want the header, but I want to change some headings. You can do like that. For that, we need to learn how to pass properties and handle them. We will learn about properties. Right? Usually, the main concept is how you will design an application with components which can be easily reused. You can easily reuse the components, right? That's the concept. Actually, I just design a simple way. There are so much complex designs are involved in this to create them. So I hope you are clear with this. Yesterday, one example I showed you, and today you saw another one. And this is just to understand the concept of working with components. This is only about designing components, how you design component, how to apply styles, how you can access and use a component, effects and all you can put. Actually, in their website, what happens when I move the mouse, they are becoming dark, they are initially light. It's your wish, you can control them. Actually, what you do, go to the CSS part, every background image opacity, I will give as opacity as 0.5. That means it will be light. That means every background image, so opacity is 0.5. And what you can do now is you can write, so card men, when hover means mouse is over, then opacity you can set it to 1. Similarly, card woman, when hover means mouse is over, opacity again you can set it to 1. And you have card kids, when hover means mouse is over, then you have opacity set to 1. And you can see now when I move the mouse onto that, it will display. You can add effects, you can control the effects by using styles and define them. That's the basic thing you need to understand, right? This is a simple example of component. So this code I will give you in the classroom. You can try that, right? Actually, from today, we are going to change our classroom code and everything will be uploaded into that code. You have to join there. I will share the new class code. You check once first. So this is your new Google class code I will share with you. And here I will upload the previous as well as from today onwards, it will be here. Okay. Right. So you, from today onwards, all the class content will be here. Okay. Everyone I uploaded here. You can get it from here, right? I will upload. It is currently empty. Just I created. Now I will upload everything there. Okay, right. So now that previous QRI given, that will not update anymore. Everything will be here from today onwards. Okay, right. Now in this design, let's see what we created. I will give this in a notes. So the Netflix, and this is 2 examples we learned. Examples, one is Netflix, another one is Shopper. Those 2 zip files I will upload, the folder zip files. You can see the code and you can handle that. Right. So this is the basic concept of understanding and working with component. And you just learned how to design components, how to access them. There is a lot about components now. So what is the next concept you need to learn? In React, while working with components, so now I hope you are clear. If anybody asks like, can we access a component inside another component? Yes, that's what we were doing. Can a component be nested? Yes, any nested. So it is later you will see more complex things. Huh? Now the next concept, it's very important to understand, is you need to know about the concept of data binding in React. This is the very major concept in web applications, data binding. Actually, what is the concept of data binding? So generally, data binding is a technique used in web applications. It is a technique used in web applications where data is accessed from a source and updated into UI, user interface. Data binding is a technique used in web applications where data is accessed from a source and it is updated in UI. Source can be anything. You can access from a variable, you can access from an API. We will see all of them, different sources. You can access from any JSON files or somewhere. A data source can be anything. There can be so many sources. We will see all of them different. So data binding is nothing but somewhere some data is kept. We have to pull the data and we have to display in the UI. We have to display in the user interface, right? Now the question is here, how JavaScript does that? In JavaScript, how do we do? For example, in a variable, there is some data and I want to display in a paragraph. How? Document dot get element by ID and which element you want to display and what data you want to display. That means JavaScript depends on lot of DOM manipulations to handle data binding. So it requires lot of functions are not enough. You simply write document get element by ID paragraph and put some inner HTML. Will it work? It will not work. You need to tell when it should update on body load, on click, on change. You need events also. Without writing an event, it will not manage. That means you have to tell what to update and when to update. You have to tell what to bind and when to bind. That means, so JavaScript all requires lot of event binding. So binding techniques to bind data. Those also you will see here. Here also we need event binding, but it simplifies now. Data binding is nothing but accessing the data from the source and updating in the UI. Collect the data from the source and display in the UI. So JavaScript depends on a lot of DOM manipulations. But what is advantage is React uses simple data binding expression that can bind data to UI. React uses simple data binding expression that can bind data to UI. So the data binding expression, in data binding expression in React is configured with curly brace like this. It is configured with curly brace. The data binding expression is configured with curly brace. It is just configured with curly brace. So that is a simple point. For example, I will show you a simple thing. Suppose syntactically, I will show. We are having a variable, some user name and some John. Now I want to display this data in a paragraph, hello, and that username, right? Generally, if you want to display like that, you have to need lot of DOM methods in JavaScript. Here, you just put a binding expression. You just put a binding expression and you access username. That's enough. You just need a binding expression. It will access the data and it will display the data. That's a simple technique. That means a simple data binding technique. You can access data from the source and you can update in the UI. You can attach to the UI. And this is what it can do, right? That's what important is. Here, so many points are there. So remember, you keep your doubts with you until the topic is finished. Don't get excited because usually the topic is very huge. And once I finish the topic, you will not have doubts, right? Because in between, lot of doubts will come, like what this will happen, what that will happen, how this will work. Every question answer is there, right? But level by level, we will explore them, all of them, because these are huge topics. Lot of concepts are involved. So don't get hurried into questions until or unless we finish every part, right? That is the best way to understand the concept. Nah? Because some people are very excited. Immediately they have doubts on the point, how it will happen like this. You will learn, no hurry. Those are all points we are going to handle, right? So first thing, what we are discussing, how we can access data from a source and update. What is the React way of doing this? Very simple. It uses a simple data binding expression. I will show you this first. Suppose anywhere you can try this. Suppose here, this is shopper index. In that shopper index, just beside this shopper, I want to say hello to somebody who logged in, somebody I want to display. Then what you do is, suppose there is a variable inside a function. We have a variable user name. I want to display in header because I want to show in header. So let's go to header. In the header function, we are declaring a variable user name. Into that variable, remember, declaring a variable and storing data in a variable in React is not recommended. Why? Those reasons also I will tell you. As of now, I am using a variable to make you understand that data is kept somewhere, source. So variable name is having some John. Okay. And this I want to display beside the shopper. Just here I will put another span. And here I will say some class I will give as margin. So left 2, and here I will say hello, and I will just put a binding expression, and you can access username variable. And you can see that it is going to display that hello John beside it. That's very simple technique. That means if this I have to do in my JavaScript, I have to write function body load on body load, get element by ID, that span ID, inner HTML is equal to some value. Now this is simple, just access and you bind. Whatever, remember this data later may come from API. We will see all the points, right? Initially, the data is collected and it is binded to UI. This is called as data binding. Actually, in software technologies, data binding in applications is classified into two types. Data binding in applications is classified into two types. We have one-way binding and we have two-way binding. And unfortunately, React supports only one-way binding. If it supports one-way binding, how you manage two-way binding? That means you have to implement explicitly. What is the meaning of supports one-way binding? Means internally it have a support for which type of binding? One-way. Internally it doesn't have a support for two-way binding. Then what does that means? Two-way binding not possible. Huh? Two-way binding is possible, but you have to explicitly manage it. Implicitly not possible. Implicitly doesn't allow. Why it will not allow? Reasons I will tell you. We will discuss those points. What is the concept? But first thing, what is one way? What is two way? What is the concept of one-way binding and two-way binding? Because several applications, environments, they support two-way binding. Several technologies support two-way binding. But React supports one-way binding only. It will not support two-way binding. Actually, what is the concept of one-way, two-way binding is, means just a basic hierarchical point I will explain actually. Generally, the concept is, you should know a topic to understand this. The concept is the actual OOP languages. OOP languages were originally introduced in early 1960 and actually the first OOP language was Simula. Simula is the first OOP language, object-oriented programming language. And when these OOP languages came, they came with a concept called code reusability. After that, what happened is in the early 1970s, because after Simula, C++, Java and all these came. First OOP language is Simula. After that, in 1970s, early 1970s, Triguev, he introduced a concept of code separation. By developing a framework called MVC, Model View Controller. He designed a framework called MVC, which made the data binding approach easy. Clean separation of code, data, and UI, everything is separated from this concept. MVC is a very old approach. So it was introduced in early 1970. It was first used in Smalltalk. Smalltalk is the language which used that code reusability and code separation. First OOP language was Simula, and code separation was introduced by Triguev. We call him father of MVC. Java, .NET, PHP, Python, every technology is using MVC. You know, Java uses MVC by name Spring. .NET uses MVC by name ASP.NET MVC. They use MVC by name ASP.NET MVC. So Python people use MVC by name Django. So Ruby people use MVC by name Ruby on Rails in framework, right? And you have Ruby on Rails, Sinatra, so many are there. You have PHP uses MVC by name Cake PHP, like Code Igniter, all this. So JavaScript based technologies use MVC by name Spine, and actually Angular uses it. Angular uses this framework of MVC, Model View Controller. Now the point here is you can implement this in any library, in any framework. You can add this. Actually, MVC is a framework you can integrate into any location. But if it is internally available, what is the concept of MVC? Concept of MVC is nothing but we have a model, and we have a controller, and we have a view. The model is nothing but model contains all the data. So view contains the UI, user interface, and controller defines the application logic, application related logic. Now what happens is whatever data is present, it will collect and it will update into you. That means access the data from the source and update into the view. And if any modification happened in the view user interface, that modification should go to the logic and update back into the UI, right? But React cannot do that. It cannot do that. That means you can collect the data from source and you can update in the UI. Any change happened in UI, it cannot update back. Then how? Now, what is this? This is a good and a bad concept. In certain ways, it is good. In certain ways, it is bad. We will discuss that, right? Detail. So the point here is several technologies will support two-way binding. What does that mean? Internally, they have a facility of two-way binding where you can handle two-way binding without additionally writing extra logic for that. You don't need to write any additional logic. Automatically two-way binding is enabled. But in React, it is not. It is not. I will show you the point here. Let's see here. What is the point I will show you? For that better, I will create one component separately instead of disturbing this. I will create a new folder by name data binding. So binding, in that folder, I will add a data binding.jsx. I will create a function, export function. So, and the function is data binding. And just to see return and just keep a div. And just add like class container fluid. Okay. And here I will put a heading data binding. Okay. And I will keep this in the startup. I will import that data binding and keep in startup. Data binding. Okay. Import and keep in the startup. And you see currently data binding is in the startup. So I will go here. Now I can work with this data binding. Let's open this data binding JSX and see here I am declaring a simple variable. Suppose I said username and it is having some value John. And what we are doing here, we are displaying a text box. Input type is equal to text. And below that, we will put some paragraph. And here we will say hello. And I will put that username. And how to attach the username to this text box? You know, text box have a value. Am I right? Text box have a value. In that value, we will put that username. That means now username will be displayed in the text box and here in the message. That means what is the concept happening here? We have a variable called username. In that, so username, in that there is a John value. Now what I am doing, this value I am displaying here, that value I am displaying in text box also. Now what is the nature of text box? Will text box allow to modify the value present in text box? Yes, na? Until or unless you don't give read only. You know read only, na? If text box is given with read only, then you can't modify. Currently, is it having any read only? It is not having any read only. Just we created a text box, accessed the data and binding it. And usually what should happen, if I do any modification, this new value should go and store here. And that if new value is stored here, it should automatically update here. That is the approach, two-way binding, that is. Now see, currently we are using React. I will click inside. I will try to delete. It's not deleting. It's not deleting. I can't do anything. I am unable to do it. So how it is great? That means you are accessing this and displaying in the UI. You are not allowing to change. Then what is this nonsense? Right? That means if you are an Angular developer, it will update. That means if you are an Angular developer and you are doing the similar thing, you type in text box, it will change. That means now it is not working for you. That means internally, implicitly, React is having one-way technique. Then how I can build an application if I don't allow any modification? That means is two-way binding not possible in React? It is possible, but it is not really right. Means what? On change. That means we need to write an event now. On change, collect the new value and update into the variable. You have to do a lot of such logic. So without that logic, React is unable to update the value that you have modified in the UI into the source. That is the concept of one-way binding. So one-way binding, two-way binding, these are the two data binding techniques. And React implicitly supports one-way. It implicitly supports one-way. So here, then how you manage two-way binding? That means what is the concept of one-way binding? So that means one-way binding is nothing but actually one-way binding is a technique where data is accessed from source and updated to UI. Any modification in UI, will not update back into source. Any modification in UI will not update back into source. Will not update back into source. It is not going to update back into source. That is the problem with one-way binding technique. And what is two-way binding technique actually? Two-way binding allows to access data from source and bind to UI. Then identifies the changes in UI and updates back to source. That is what actually two-way binding here. So one-way binding, so data is accessed from source and update to the UI. Any modification in UI will not update back into the source. And two-way binding means it allows to handle both. Read the data from the source and update to UI. Any modification, identify that and update back into this. Now the concept, how two-way binding is achieved actually. So React requires event binding techniques to handle two-way binding explicitly. Explicitly is externally. That means many technologies who claim that we support two-way binding, they usually support two-way binding. That means they will simply access the data from the source without writing any extra logic, they update. Without writing any extra logic, they are going to update. Right? That is the concept of two-way binding. Actually, I can show you two-way binding, but another project install configure we need to do. I will show later. That means some technology supports implicitly two-way bind. So this is one issue here. That means how you handle that two-way binding. I will tell you two-way binding is what is the concept behind two-way binding, how it works. Now, can you tell what may be the use of supporting only one-way binding? Because React claims that it is a feature of React. React claims that it is a feature of React. That means React in the features, it tells that I have one-way binding proudly. But I don't see anything such proud concept in this. Means in general, if you are coming from JavaScript background, you will be thinking, what is this? It is not supporting two-way binding. It is not allowing to update. Right? I haven't given any read-only property here. I just have a value attached to this. Right? Then it is not allowing to do any modification in that, not updating the values. That means, what do you think? What may be the advantage of supporting one-way binding? Anything? Anyone? What may be the advantage of having one-way binding? Does it look any good about it? Anything great about that concept that you have seen just now? What do you say? So anything? Yes. Yeah. Good. Some points are good. That means what you say here, some people online. Yeah. So it is secured. You are saying that it is secured. That means it is secured because your data is not automatically updated accidentally or automatically. This is not changed, right? Okay, it is secured. Another way is if it is not having two-way communication, that means it is more faster in rendering your user interface. If it is having two-way communication, that it needs extra events, configuring of events. That means obviously that will be one option, right? Second point here is it will reduce the injection attacks into application. Injection attacks, several injection attacks happens by posting unnecessary data into the application. Lot of injection attacks happens. We call them as cross-site scripting attacks. Cross-site scripting attacks. That means it prevents, that means the main reason is fast and secure. You can simply tell one point, it is fast and it is secure. But it is not great every time. It is not great every time. That means cross-site scripting attacks. Cross-site scripting attacks means usually people try to attack your application by posting some queries. And if your controls are allowing to post some queries, so without necessary of posting the queries, then it is not good for application. So this is one of the major simple concept actually. That means you can simply say that one-way binding, because some more features you will learn about that. You can simply say that. So one-way binding is so fast and secured. One-way binding is fast and secured because React's main aim is to keep your applications more faster than others. That is the intention. They are using a virtual DOM also. That is the main concept why they are using a virtual DOM, right? In that case, one-way binding is one concept which will reduce the complexity in rendering the content. So two-way binding requires a lot of events combination. Of course, if you want to manage two-way binding, then you have to explicitly implement. That means you have to write the logic and implement. I will show you how we can do that. So in data binding, you have two options. That means you can see syntax here. Suppose I configured username and here I am defining input type is text and value is some binding expression username. You are binding that, and usually that means this text box is not editable. It's not editable. You can just view the data. You cannot modify the data, right? So if you want to make it editable, then you have to understand some more things, right? That I will show you. Two-way binding later we will see, right? But in one-way binding, now what is the challenge for a developer is, okay, you presented a simple text. How you will present array? How you will present an object? How you will present an array of objects? That means now a developer in React should learn how to present different types of data, how to bind different types of data. That means how do you bind numbers, strings, booleans, undefined string type, how you will bind arrays and objects, how you will display them. Generally, what you do in JavaScript, you have an array. In that array, you have some list, and that list you want to display in a drop down. Then you have to write a lengthy logic for that. Am I right? You know how to create drop downs dynamically in JavaScript. It's a lengthy process, but React simplifies this now. That means now you need to learn how to bind various types of data in the UI. That means now we are going to understand. So binding primitive and non-primitive data types to UI. How we can bind, how we can present. That means actually, you know, what are the primitive types? Primitive types means we have a number, we have a string, we have a boolean, we have null, you have undefined, you have big int, you have a symbol. These are all the primitive types of latest JavaScript, ES6 and higher. Those are all the big int, int. Yeah, these are the primitive types. We have non-primitive types. Non-primitive types we have like, so arrays, you have like object, you have like map, People also have sets we are not using much now. We have a lot of map option on. And you should also know about how do we handle a date type values, how we present date type, how we manage the data. That means different types of data binding. Because as a developer, you will get different kinds of data with you, right? And you need to learn how to present it. Because it's not simply like it will present. For example, see here, why you need to know this? Because that's different from your JavaScript. Suppose in this, I am having another variable called stock. It is a Boolean value, right? Stock is a Boolean value. And here I'm writing some paragraph. In the paragraph, I say stock, and I'm accessing with a binding expression that stock variable. And what it is having? True. It is having true. And you can see in the UI, it is not showing. It is not showing. That is why it is not just simply like, I know all this. I know how to present a number or a string. It's not like that. That means you need to know the various techniques, various consequences of different data in React. How you handle the data, different types of data. What if you don't know properly how to handle the data, then you will face the issues of abnormal values, abnormal results. For example, do you know these days in the modern JavaScript, suppose this number is present. So what is the best way of storing this number in a variable? So I have written 99, some 39 or something number I have written like this. This is not the best, safest way of storing such large numbers. Now memory will sometimes misuse this number. That means it will round the number. It will show a different value. It will float this number. That means it will not get the same value every time. It is going to float this number. It will change it. Now for a JavaScript developer, this question is like how you will safely store this in memory. That is the question. In modern JavaScript, how you will safely store this in memory? What is the correct way of storing such large numbers in memory? You have the option like simply, so you have var x and you have such large numbers, then you just put n as suffix. That is the safest way. That is called big int, big integer. Big integer will have the suffix n. That is the new concept from JavaScript latest. That means it uses a new big int type. Or you can also use a method called max safe integer. You can use integer, max safe integer method. By using this method, you can take a value and you can present that value. You have max safe integer. By using that, you can do. Why? Because this is important. You should know how you store your values safely. Otherwise, they will be abnormal. That means, for example, you see here, I'm opening console roughly. And in this console, and what I'm doing here, right? So, yeah, in this console, I'm just showing you the part here. Let's take another browser, right? So that I don't have any errors. Yeah. In this console, I'm trying to type something. You see in the console, I'm adding something. So what is the concept in the console I'm trying here is, this is an empty page only, right? I will put here an option like max number dot max safe integer. Max safe integer. And you see, this is the maximum safe integer you can store. And for that, you have to use this number dot max safe integer method. And or to safely store that in the memory, not have abnormal behavior, use suffix as n for that. That is what recently we expect. So what you need to learn is how you can present the data, different types of data, how you can present. So for that, you need to understand some techniques. I will show you how to present all these, right? Arrays, objects, and array of objects. First, we will use local data. After that, we will pick up data coming from APIs and we will use those data. We will learn first data presentation, then we will learn about data interactions later. That we'll see tomorrow. Right, in tomorrow's session, we are going to learn how to present various types of data in the UI. Right, that first you are perfect in that, then you can go into next concept. Right, tomorrow we'll discuss about that. Okay, right. You got everyone classroom code, right? Right. And all these notes and everything I will upload there from today onwards. Okay, right.
Recording in progress.